This is Barbara Crampton, and you're listening to Without Your Head.
Welcome to the station of decapitation Without Your Head. I'm Nasty Neil, and I'm joined by Brandon Scott, Tom, of Channel Zero Dream Door, which premieres this Friday on SyFy. It's very cool to have you here.
Yes, I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and I just found out you haven't seen it yet, so I was going to ask.
I'm going to be asking you all the questions.
Right.
What happened?
Well, I can't. I'm not allowed to give spoilers out, apparently.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know, because I will probably. Okay, it's good to know so I don't ruin it for any of the fans out there who are listening right now, because that would be so many exciting things happen. I don't want to ruin anything.
Yeah, I loved it though. I loved the show ever since the first season, and I like how shows now, a lot of them are like a different story each season. That's not really ever anything that ever happened until recently.
Mm-hmm. When did that start? Did that start with American Horror Story, or that's the first one that I can think of.
I think so. I think it was American Horror Story, and then it kind of became like a. Not a bunch of shows, but several of them do it.
It's exciting.
Yeah. Even though you haven't seen it, could you give people an idea of what the season is about?
What is the season about? The season, I think the basic is about Jill and Tom, newlyweds, who move into Tom's old house, childhood house, and they discover a door in the house, and curiosity, pushes them to actually open the door, and it's basically in the door. I don't know if this spoils anything, but we were introduced to a monster who the intentions, who knows what the intentions are, but basically their kind of like newlywed relationship and the struggles that couples go through are manifested in this creature that kind of starts to play on the relationship, and I think what's awesome about it is it's a love story, but it's also about monsters and about all these crazy things that happen. So that's really what is exciting about this season. It's a more contained story, but within that containment, it's just Nick goes wild. Nick and Evan go wild with their imagination, and a fun playground to be in.
Yeah. So what exactly we said, the relationship with your characters, then you have monsters. And I always think if like the main story is kind of grounded in reality, it makes the supernatural stuff more believable. Yeah.
Hopefully, that is the theory. And I think that Evan did a really good job. And Nick in terms of just the showrunner and the writer, but Evan really, I think, did a good job of constantly reminding us of that and trying to just, give us little textures just to ground it where we needed to. And I think if you can get invested in that relationship, then you're completely on board for everything that happens, as a result of it.
Yeah. Well, what interested you in the in doing the show?
Oh man, last season I did Butcher's Block, which was one of my favorite shows. So it was a cool character. So when Nick called me up and expressed an interest in me reading for the character, I was just already on board because I love the show. I'm a big fan of the show. I love the characters, and I just had such a great time working on Butcher's Block with the cast and the crew. Shout out to the Winnipeg crew. They're just so amazing. So when he approached me about that, I was like, yeah, I'm down. And I'm sure once I read it, I'll still be down, but I'm already know I'm down. And then when I just read it and loved how grounded it was in the relationship and the exploration of how the trust issues and the secrets we keep and the skeletons in our closets and then those actually being things that are manifested, I just was even more so on board. And I had to audition for it, which I was like game for. I was like, you know what? I really love this character. I could relate to the situation in terms of just like, I think Tom is like he means well. He's a protector. He's a very capable person and thinks he knows best. And I guess I can relate to that because sometimes I can be like that. And I think I know best. And then just to kind of, when just to dive into that was just sounded delicious. And I was like, I'm willing to fight for this. I'm willing to go in and do my interpretation of it. And, it worked out. And I had such a great time going back on the show and working with everyone again. And it's just, I mean, I hope this show continues forever. And because it's such a good show.
Yeah, I love it. I talk about it every season on the show because I think it's a really special show. It's great. And, I like SyFy. I think sometimes people think something on SyFy channel might, it's all like Sharknado stuff, but it's they have a lot of, great original, programming that's not, necessarily like CGI sharks.
Yeah.
I was just asked about Nick, the guy who created the show. Is he hands-on when you're filming the show too?
I think he was working. He's very much present. And he's always, this season, I think he was working on another show at the same time. So he was really bummed he couldn't be there like he usually is. But he has that delicate, he accomplishes it very well, that balance of, he's very present and he's there if you need him, but he also gives everyone room to kind of just do their thing. So you don't feel as if, it has to be a certain way or whatnot. He's very supportive, but whenever we would come we'd come up against, any type of questions about the character or this scene or whatnot, and we talked to Evan about it, and it was very much a collaborative effort. Then we would get Nick on the phone, and Nick would chime in, and we were able to work it out, and if things needed to kind of like on the fly, which was so dope, like change, like everyone was just so collaborative and receptive to all ideas, and it really, I think it just, again, it was a great working environment to work in. But yeah, he's like an awesome collaborator and just so down to earth and chill. Like you feel like you're creating with your best friends in high school or whatnot, as opposed to like it feeling as if this is the boss, this is the head, It just really makes you feel like warm and welcome, and we just have fun.
Yeah. So if you or any of the actors if you think, not necessarily change anything, but if you want to do something a little different, like everyone's open to talk about it.
You mean when we were shooting?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were. I mean, within the story, it's like
right.
I couldn't be like
within reason. Yeah.
Jumps off a bridge. It's like in the season. It's like no, but definitely we got to use our imaginations and I think bring ourselves and our ideas to the story in ways that that just makes it's a gift for actors to kind of come in and be given the freedom to say, hey, if you have ideas, like if there's something that like about this prop or whatnot that doesn't seem justified because you're starting to live these characters, let's talk about it. And that sometimes it can be, I think on other shows I've kind of felt hesitant about that because I'm like, I don't want to overstep any boundaries or whatnot. And, I'm not a writer, I'm not the director or anything like that. But then when you're given that permission and you see that actually speaking up and talking about things actually helps the whole process and helps everyone, we just found a really good working groove, and hopefully these 6 episodes reflect that.
Mm-hmm. And the dialogue is great. Even like this isn't a spoiler because it's the very first scene in the first episode. When you guys are talking, you and your wife, and there's something about roses. And it's kind of really like foreshadow metaphor for like the couple. It's sweet on the outside, but there's thorns underneath, and it's stuff that doesn't hit you over the head, but it makes you think, and helps the story.
Yeah, I think there are quite a few examples of that, and I think and hopefully again it feels like natural. It feels like 2 people talking or characters talking as opposed to any type of exposition or foreshadowing or things like that.
Mm-hmm. Did you feel you had good chemistry with Maria, who plays your wife, right away?
Oh no, not at all. We're not. Of course, yeah, she's great. We, again, you just it's like when the I guess TV and film gods come in and just like, put the perfect group of people together. This really felt like that. Luckily, we got Evan put us in touch when we had about like probably a week out of shooting or whatnot, or maybe it was about a week and a half. And we were able to connect over the phone. And I happened to be like also not just Maria. I happened to be in New York, so I was able to connect with Nick Tucci, who plays Jason, and Stephen Robertson, who plays Ian. And so, so just going into this, there was already a comfort amongst, I think, the cast. And then, when we got up to Winnipeg, we just like were able to hang out, all of us. And so, me and Maria hit it off, and just it felt very comfortable, very natural. And also we worked similarly, I think, in terms of how we just like to just like talk about the characters and just like improv out of nowhere and discuss things. And so it just really was a good working environment.
Yeah. And there's a lot of sex in the show. So what's that like to film a sex scene in front of a crew of people?
Oh, dude, man. I think we both bonded on, we were nervous as hell because, I mean, so many things go through your head. It's like, it's like, well, how is this go? We're basically shooting all this stuff on day 2. I think we shot all that on day 2, and it's like, and then with the crew there and everything. But, again, luckily we, Evan was good at discussing what each scene and why each scene was there and his intention behind each one. So it just wasn't like, okay, you get in there and y'all are going to start having sex, It's like, no, this is why this sex scene needs to be there. This is what we're hoping to show. This is how I want to shoot it. So there was already a conversation about it, and then he encouraged me and Maria to talk about, like each one and our thoughts about it. And then there was like a lot of discussion about it, which was cool. Which, I don't know. Part of me is like, I don't want to talk about it. But it's actually good that we did talk about it. Yeah. And then just like the first AD did a great job, Doug, of the crew, everyone just gave us our privacy, and everything just was very professional. And and the next thing you know, it's over, and it's like, whoa, we survived that. Day 2. Day 2.
Yeah, and like you said, there's reason behind the sex in the show. It's not just there for people to hey, that's pretty cool. But yeah, it's part of the story. So is it cold? Yeah, is it cold filming in Winnipeg?
Yo, both times I've been in Winnipeg, it has been during the summer. And all I hear about is how the winters get below 40 there. And so every time I've been there, it's either the chill is going away or it's starting to come in, and then conveniently we're done shooting. But it's I hear it gets pretty brutal, and now I've made it a goal in my life for some strange reason to actually experience what minus 40 is. So I'll let you know. But
yeah,
I mean, where'd you grow? Or did you grow up in like a area?
Well, I'm in New England. I'm in Massachusetts, so it gets cold, but it doesn't get negative 40 cold.
Well, I'm from Alabama, so everything's cold to me. Like, it gets cold everywhere.
Yeah, it's all relative, I guess. So, it's a great mix of both like psychological horror and then very brutal and gory stuff, which I think will appeal to both sides of horror fans. And what did you think of some of like the brutal scenes in the show?
I think I thought I remember reading it in I mean so many things about it, like even the brutality of some of the scenes, and even like just even the reading some of the sex scenes and being like, whoa, how are we going to do all this and show all this, what I think, again, what is great about it is hopefully, I haven't seen it, but there's some fun and humor in it also. So I think that hopefully it balances it out to where you're almost you could laugh in one moment and the next moment be disturbed about how brutal it is. I mean, I think the Pretzel Jack character was just, he epitomizes it, how he, in that scene at the end of the first, episode, and then what he does when he completes his duty, it's just like, that's the whole series. So I think it can go to those extremes because there's a good balance of lightness, but then when it needs to get heavy, it gets heavy. When it needs to get dramatic, it does. When it needs to get funny, it does. And hopefully, we tried to find all those notes where we could, and to where you're just on board for. I think this season is hopefully just a lot of fun and satisfy a lot of horror fans in that way.
The actor plays Pretzel Jack. Is he? I assume like his movement. So when you're on set with him and he's like doing a lot of his movement, is that him himself?
Yeah, that's him. He does that for real, and he relishes. It's so delicious how he enjoys weirding and freaking people out with it, because he will just, he'll walk into a room and then next thing you know, collapse, like fold his body a certain way and just hit the ground so hard to where you swear he's just like someone bent him in half. And then he'll just lay there in this weird position where you would, if it was anyone else, all their bones would be broken. And he'll just smile at you so innocently. It's the most enjoyable, but also like creepiest thing. So that was my introduction to Troy. He just I think people were talking about he fit himself in a locker just to show people he could contort into a locker. But we had so much fun with him on set. He's just he's one of the most lovely human beings. And I think that quality of him really might make some people root for Pretzel Jack, which I think could be.
Yeah. I think it's. I think I know there's a lot of evil clown. He's kind of more of a mime than a clown, I guess. But I think Pretzel Jack will go on the list of favorite horror clowns after people see it.
I totally agree. Some people have been. Number one, I was talking to someone on Twitter about he was talking about creating a Soul Calibur character that you can create. It's a fighting game, and you can generate your own characters. And he was like, I'm going to create a Soul Calibur Pretzel Jack. And then there's some action figures that someone just started creating. So the fanfare, I think, is really going to be behind Pretzel Jack.
Yeah.
I think people are going to... Pretzel Jack needs his own series. He does.
Yeah, it's pretty well. And I think the fact when you're watching it, you could tell it is a person doing the things and not like CG adds to the creepiness. It's like, wow, this is a creepy guy, But yet he's kind of likable in a way.
Yeah, and I love that about, I feel all the other seasons, they do a really good job of actually doing practical effects. So there is something very uncanny and creepy about when it's something that is, it's in camera. And so, I mean, I can't wait to see it, but the bit I've seen of Troy doing Pretzel Jack, and just from my experience on set, I'm sure it's going to be
I think
people's dreams.
Yeah, I think even if you don't really know why it's creepier, I think there's something about the weight of something that's actually there, and it works with your eye and your mind, and it makes it more realistic and creepier in a way.
And then what's dope is also the creepy pasta that this is based off of.
Yeah.
In the description in it of how the person in the corner moved, it's in the how unnatural it was, to where like what you're just saying, it's like Troy actually moves that way to where your brain is trying to catch up with what is actually going on and why is this a human being able to do this, and before you know it, he's in your face. So that's a really I think he's perfectly cast, and just in staying true to the creepypasta. Nick did a great job of finding him and bringing him into this world.
And the whole creepypasta is interesting because it's like our modern day campfire stories or legends. It's just a new way to tell them online.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't looked at it like that, but that's great. I should actually, now I'm now, because I love going camping, I'm like determined to learn some of them. So I can tell them
that's a good idea. You mentioned there's a comedy in it, and I think Steven Weber's performance is very funny, and he does it in a way where it's not over the top funny, where it's like where it takes you out of it. But he's just this very calm guy, and he almost doesn't pay attention sometimes. And I find there's something very funny there. It's like borderline parody, but not over the top, where it would be, too silly.
I agree. I mean, we had number one reading. I remember reading those scenes and just I had a completely different idea of what's his name again? Karnacki. What Karnacki would be like, the therapist, but then when we got on set with Steven, it just was like, it made so much sense. And he had us all cracking up. But exactly how you said it, he just, it's really grounded, but it's his point of view, I think the character's point of view that he found about everything is what makes it really interesting, and also like true to life about some therapists. I'm just like, yeah, this is how a therapist would be. So he was a great guy. He was great to work with.
Yeah. And it was awesome to see Barbara.
I mean, like,
go on.
Barbara. Yeah. I just feel like I'm just like loving on everyone, but I'm telling you, it was such a great experience and a good group of people. And everyone, again, like, even Barbara, she just was like, the queen of horror who came in there and just like, we would have these conversations, or she would, she did some, had us do some questionnaires for Fangoria, and she was just, just everyone came in there and just everyone believed in the story and just wanted to, just bring everything they had to it. And she's just a lovely, lovely individual. Yeah.
It's I grew up watching a lot of her movies, and then it's great to see her later on in her career. Really making a comeback. She's been in a lot of stuff in the last 5 years.
And it seems like she's not slowing down. She's got, I think, a couple other projects she was talking about, and then she does all these conventions. And,
hopefully what?
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, what were you going to say?
Hopefully we could all have careers like that. You know what I mean?
Exactly. I was just say at a convention I hosted a Scream Queen panel, and she was part of the panel, and she was just great stories and great presence too.
Yeah, and she knows, she really knows the people in the business, and or like people who love the business and love horror. She was telling she was telling us on set about like Hereditary and all these movies to watch before they had come out. She was like, "This one's gonna be one you should watch," and whatnot. And then I went and saw Hereditary, and I was like, Barbara, why did you disturb me like that? She recommended another one, which I got to see, Last Train to Busan. Is that the one?
Oh yeah, it's a great, it's a Korean zombie. Yeah.
Yeah, that's on my list.
Yeah, that would recommend that too. That's an excellent movie. They're remaking it, which but you see the Korean one, it's great. Are you a horror movie fan? Version? Yeah, they're making an American version, which they do a lot.
Me as a horror movie, I am. I go back and it's so funny because growing up, I was all about the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Hellraisers. Like me and my brother would just watch those endlessly, and I go in and out to where I'm out of touch with what's going on in horror, and then I get back in, and then I go back out. My wife is a horror writer, so she writes horror, and so since we've been together, we've been getting back in. But I love it. I love it. I just sometimes I think I get out of touch with everything that's going on, and then I gotta play a lot of catch up. And then, a couple of years ago where I'm more into documentaries, and I'm like, I'm only going to watch documentaries. That's it, which can be horror. Documentaries can be horror.
Sure.
And then I dive back into the, whatever world. So it's like a cycle, I would say.
Were there any particular, when you were growing up, was there any particular movies or actors or anything that made you want to become an actor?
Well, yeah. God. Big Trouble in Little China.
I love that movie. Yeah.
Movies.
Uh-huh.
I love the action. I love like. I mean, I just wanted to do a lot of action at first. That's where it started. I think everyone wanted to. I mean, every kid wanted to be like a superhero. But then I started watching like a lot of like 70s movies, like Brando and Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and some of those. And like Deliverance is one that I was just like so disturbed by. And I was like, oh, okay, like we have potential to disturb people and and also just tell these like dope stories. So then I kind of, those are some of the ones that started making me think about it. And then just like everything Denzel Washington did, I was just always inspired by that. And that he got to do a bit of everything. I feel like he played so many different types of roles. So that made me say, I want to do Shakespeare. I want to do action. I want to do drama. But then more recently, I found myself doing a lot of horror, which is a lot of fun because I think, again, the horror world, you get to go to these almost Shakespearean places at times because the stakes are so high. But then also, again, it has action. A lot of, I think the horror I like has humor too. And the gore, I mean, I actually do like the idea of like, you know, the reset and the blood and the gore. And I guess that part of me that's like, you can kind of like make people squeamish and make people have to face certain things or be uncomfortable. And I think horror is sometimes one of the best things to watch with people. Because especially like I really wish Channel Zero could be in a packed theater. Yeah, because I love you get an immediate response from audience, like when they're just by every thing that happens, and you people scream, people they cheer on certain characters, they get squeamish, all these things happen in real time, and that's one thing I love about that experience of like a horror community.
Do you have any plans for Halloween?
I'm trying to figure that out. There's actually in LA there are a lot of immersive theater events going on. I'll give a shout out to this one called Creep LA, which it's not a haunted house. It's just a creepy immersive experience where you're for like 70 minutes taken to these different stories, and there's a whole theme to it, but sometimes you can find yourself like trapped in like a closet with one person, or you could be kneeling in front of this Skeletor like principal or whatnot, and it's just all this weird but fun, exciting vignettes almost happening. So there's here downtown, there's like a lot of pop-up experiences like that happening in LA. So I'm probably going to, on Halloween, I don't know what I'm going to dress up as, but I'm going to put something on and end up there and hopefully get a fright here and there and eat some candy and find myself back home and glad that I'm safe.
Sounds good. So back to the show. I always like it in any kind of story like this where there's a point in time when the characters have to think like, is this supernatural or it isn't? And I would always think that's intriguing, and it can make or break a story too. Like if it's unbelievable at some point they don't believe it's something bizarre, you're like, well, they have to know by now. But when you're playing that, is that in your mind? Like my character, he thinks this is just a straight up killer or something, and then at some point you have to come to the conclusion that this is something beyond a regular world.
Yeah, we had a lot of talks about that, and because there is this delicate balance of trying to find out, okay, well, when is the person going to believe in the circumstances? They're going to believe in the supernatural, but then also it's exciting to see someone fight and not accept, to always justify why this isn't something supernatural. because I think it tells you something about the character, and I don't know. It's always interesting when I go in for ADR and I see what's been cut out of the show. But for Tom, there are some hints at just his mindset and his belief system that we discussed, to where and also Tom is thinking he knows best and he's the adult in the room, which I think that happens a lot in between him and Jill. Tom gaslights or he just thinks he knows best. He knows what's going on more than she does. So it was tricky to constantly justify him thinking or denying that something surreal or supernatural is happening. But I just also, me and Evan talked about, like, well, you, Brandon, how would you go about some of these things? I'm like, yeah, I am one of these people who always tries to find the logic or the reason in something, even if, it's like I went to the Magic Castle in LA one time and my mind was blown. And I was like, it's just magic, you know what I mean? It's just, I'm going to figure out the trick. And I went home and I Googled and I kept trying to find the trick on how they did it. Because I was like, I can figure out what this is so I can expose it. So I tried to bring some of that to him, but there is a clear point to where he just cannot deny what's going on. And it's a paradigm shift for him. And I think that's something that can be so unsettling to anyone when their belief system, when they try to hold on to the system, it resists any change. And then at a certain point, it has to accept that reality is not what they thought it was. And that just opens up I feel like you could do a whole just character study on just that moment and how a person recovers from that. But sometimes I think in a lot of horror, they recover quickly because we got to keep it moving, you know what I mean? But in something that could breathe a bit more, it's just like, how do you recover from, whether it's survival or what, or just just recover from that.
That's a good point. It's interesting. And by the way, Magic Castle is very cool. I know it's hard to get into, but when I was in LA the last time, a former guest on the show hooked me up, and it was a really cool experience.
They're amazing. I was like, the more alcohol you drink, the better the magic is, though. But at the same time, the up close magic, there was some stuff going on where I was like, okay, I'm gonna leave now because I'm so disturbed of what's going on. I don't want my mind to be blown like this, because that's really how you did it. He called me up to be an assistant in that room and I still couldn't figure out how he was doing it either. But it was very cool. Oh wow. See, that's a good addition right there. Wow.
Yeah. So it's great to have you on. I hope everyone checks out Channel Zero. Dream Room starts Friday. I actually think the first episode's already up on SyFy on their on-demand channel for people out there. Yeah, so you guys can check that out. And it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Yeah.
Hey, you too, Neil. You too. Take care.
Thanks, you too.
Hi, this is Anthony T. Ferrante, director of the Sharknado quadrilogy, including Sharknado The Fourth Awakens, airing SyFy on Sunday night. And you're listening to Without Your Head.